So when you're on a date with a girl, what should you actually talk about? What's going to have the greatest effect of creating a connection with her, getting to know her, having her get to know you, but of course also, right? Because just creating a bond with someone, just that's enough to get you in the friend zone. But the way I say it is that the friend zone is 50% of getting with a girl. The other 50% is the attraction, the seduction, right? So you do want to create a bond, but you need to also have her be attracted to you. So, what kinds of conversations will move you in that direction, right? My best advice is that generally you can talk about anything, right? Like you see behind me, there's a poster on the wall right here, okay? And if you don't know who that is, that's the Emperor of Mankind from Warhammer 40K. It's a sci-fi universe. You may or may not know who that is. Okay, I've talked about that with girls. I've talked about nerdy shit with girls. I've talked about politics with girls, even where we disagreed on something and got into a debate. I've talked about religion. I've given girls lectures on religion and, my knowledge of them because I have a degree in it, right? Talked about Christianity, Islam, Buddhism. And I've had it go well. And I've had girls be very enthralled by those types of conversations, okay? And that led to her respecting me, maybe my intelligence. She thought I was smart. Getting to know me better, so feeling comfortable and familiar with me. And also me getting to know her because I would ask her opinion on these things and include her, of course, in the conversation. I'm not just lecturing her. And attracted to me, right? Because girls can be attracted to an intelligent guy. As long as he's not just purely intellect, right? He has to have something sexy about it, right? Just a philosopher is boring, but a sexy philosopher, that's really, really attractive because you have intelligence, plus you do it in a cool way, basically, right? So the general idea is that you can talk about anything, but with a few guidelines, okay? And so the guidelines are as follows. You should talk about something you want to talk about, but also something that she wants to talk about. If you only check one of those boxes, if you just talk about what she wants to talk about, then you're not going to be as engaged. You can maybe fake it, but it's not going to come off as authentic. And so it's not going to create that much of a bond. But if you only talk about what you want to talk about, then unless you're really, really good at basically being a public speaker, making whatever you want to talk about very interesting, she's probably not going to buy into it too much. But luckily, if you do have enough passion and you do know when to stop, then you can talk about anything and have her really enthralled by what you're talking about. Okay, so passion can actually create that interest. And from what I've seen, girls are really, really interested in hearing almost anything as long as the person talking has good fundamentals. Okay, and I talk about fundamentals a lot on this channel, and it's something that is unfortunately very ignored by most dating coaches. And fundamentals are the non-verbal qualities, including your vocal tonality, which is technically verbal, but it's not the actual words, right? It's the way you say things, your intonation, your actual, all of those like singer terms, like the purr of your voice. Like I said, the intonation, like the variance in your tones, not being monotone, kind of, speaking really fast at one point and then kind of slowing down and talking like this, right? You play your voice like an instrument, but also your eye contact, holding enough eye contact, not too much, sometimes a lot, sometimes little, kind of you're looking off and you're thinking, your facial expressions, right? You're not just wooden the entire time. Like your face is reflecting what's going on in your heart and in your mind, your hand gestures, you're kind of illustrating how you speak, your body language, okay? Your fashion, right? Your hair, I'm growing out my hair, so it's just going to look shitty, right? And I'm wearing an Elden Ring t-shirt with cat hair on it, but ignore that, right? So your fundamentals, okay? Women are very attracted to when, especially men, can speak very passionately with good fundamentals, so basically being a good public speaker in a way, and they can be enthralled by any conversation. Now, if they're not interested in it innately, like they just don't care much about it, there is a limit, right? She is going to get bored eventually, but your fundamentals can carry you for a good 5-10 minutes about talking about something that she's not interested in. Whereas men, we kind of care about the subject matter itself a lot. Not to say that women don't, right? But women are a little bit more interested in the actual social skill of being able to talk about anything. Whereas men, for the most part, if you're talking about something they're not interested in, they're kind of going to tune out, even if you're really charismatic about it. So that's to our advantage, right? So we can really talk about anything as long as it's passionate and has good fundamentals. So you need to train those skills. And the only way to train them is to get in a lot of situations and talk a lot, right? In practice, like, how do I make myself more interesting? Okay. And kind of whenever you're interacting with anyone, it can be ordering a pizza on the phone, or, getting a snack at the 7-Eleven, or ordering your food at the restaurant, or talking to a professor or a friend or family. Every time you're socializing, think, how can I make this more charismatic, right? In all of those boxes that I just mentioned, hand gestures, facial expressions, etc., blah, blah, blah. How can I use those things to make me more interesting? So always act as if you have a mic on you and a mirror camera, and you're always watching yourself, kind of aware of yourself as you're talking, and listening to yourself as you talk. It's very hard to do at first because you have to focus on what you're doing and also watching what you're doing. It's kind of hard to split your consciousness like that. But if you try hard enough, you will learn how to do it. And it's something that I do while I'm making videos. Like, I'm always in two places at once. I'm very aware of what I'm talking about, but I'm also watching myself as I do it, as if like I'm actually watching the video. Not perfectly, right? But enough where I can, catch myself maybe talking too much, digressing too much, like I'm about to right now. And then when I catch myself going too far, I cut it and then I move on to the next thing, right? So that's important when you're talking to a girl, is knowing when to cut those threads that you're interested in with good fundamentals, but she's not so much. And the way that you do that is very simple. You watch her, right? That's the ultimate skill to know what to talk about with a girl. Watch her. That's what's going to tell you if she's interested or not. Is she looking away, kind of not interested, body language turning, she's giving you like, oh, that's crazy, for the 8th time kind of response. Okay, she's clearly not into it. But if she's engaged, giving you strong eye contact, she's interrupting you, but in a good way to like show that she's listening, right? You really know someone's listening when you ever been so interested in what someone's saying, like you kind of see where their train of thought is going, and you jump in, you go, oh, what you're saying is this, and they go, yeah, exactly. It's a very cool little charisma hack that you can use, because it really makes the person know you're listening. And women will do it very, very naturally. They'll jump in and want to be a participant of the conversation. If they're doing something like that, strong eye contact, laughing, smiling, nodding along, then they're usually very interested. Sometimes girls, especially those girls who are like kind of icy and they're not showing a lot with their face, but they give you strong eye contact, that's usually a really good sign, right? So it is going to depend on her personality. Some girls are more bubbly and engaged than others. But usually attention is good, non-attention is bad. That's the simplest way we can break it down, right? So ideally, you want to talk about what you're interested in and what she's also interested in. The way you know this is by paying attention to her fundamentals, her body language, her facial expressions, etc. And she's always watching yours as well. So the best conversation, no matter the topic, has these things included. Now, the actual topic itself can be just as important as the tonality, obviously, right? So what we have to break it down into is, again, two groups, right? There's the personal, and then there's the non-personal, the general, right? If you're talking about a story of someone else or some event like a gossip or something that's happening like a world event or a war, an election, a philosophy, an economy, whatever. These things are very, very easy to talk about because there's not a lot of risk unless it's something very close to them, but then it becomes personal, like their religion, right, or their political views, because you can just talk about them kind of endlessly, and they're interesting to get lost in as ideas. but you don't want to spend too much time on them, because the strongest connection that you're going to make, which is going to, that bond is going to make her more attracted to you and create this feeling. Ideally, when you're on a date with a girl, you want her to feel like, I've known you for 10 years. And the way you get that feeling for the most part is by her either telling you who she is very intimately, because you know how to kind of slowly work into the really deeply personal. Doesn't mean she has to tell you deep, dark secrets, but if she tells you a lot about herself and you're able to show her that you are interested in it, right? And maybe even on certain occasions admire something that she has done or something that she believes, or you agree with it, right? And you have similar personalities and similar values, she's going to feel connected to you. So even if you've only known each other for these, outside of meeting each other, like actual on the date, you met each other for 5 minutes, and then on this date, you've been talking for an hour and a half. She can feel so connected with you that she's willing to sleep with you very quickly, because she feels as if she's known you for years, right? Connections are not bound to time, right? And in some cases, you don't need a strong connection. Some girls might just already be aroused enough to sleep with you, right? And that's ultimately our goal, right? Because no matter how serious a relationship you want, monogamy and a family, it's going to involve sex, okay? So I generally advise that whether you're looking for one-night stands, kind of in the middle casual relationships, or a serious relationship, you're going for sex. And that's truthfully what you're going for. You may not just be... Most guys are not aware how much their sex drive is driving them, okay? And I don't want to go too much into it, but the strongest sign of your connection with her is sex. Friend zone is great. It's 50% the way there. But really what you're looking for is a connection and sex. But sex usually, in a lot of cases, is a good indication of that connection, right? So you're doing a good job when she's very enthralled by you, very invested in you, giving you strong eye contact, right? Very leaning in energy, right? She wants to get close to you, right? So that you have sex, you're very close to each other, you're inside of her, right? So we want to move the scales, or, the ticker in that direction, okay? So our goal is to get as personal as possible, but there is one thing that you can sometimes go too deep. And one of the best examples I have of this is I was at like a day drink affair a long time ago at like a vacation spot. And I met these girls and they invited me to their after party. So I went there and there was a jacuzzi. And so we got in there and there's this cute girl in there. And I started chatting with her. And there weren't a lot of people in the jacuzzi at that point just yet. But as we started talking, and I think I'd smoked a little bit and I was a little bit drunk. I kind of just got too focused on the conversation and I was in seduction mode. People kind of started coming in and I didn't really notice it too much because I was too focused on her. And we got really deep into conversation. And she was telling me about, I don't know, some like family tragedies and like really deep stuff, a little bit dark. But I was, it almost felt like a therapy session. And I kind of went too deep. And then at some point there was a silence. And then she kind of stopped and looked around. And everyone was like, this is a deep conversation. Like you could feel it in the air. And she's like, maybe we should talk about something else. And I'm like, shit, that was a bit too deep for the context, for everyone being there. Now, there was other people there watching and judging, I guess, is what she was afraid of. So this would be a one-on-one, you're on a date with a girl, but you can still go too deep where a person kind of goes, maybe that was too much. But for the most part, you do want to go as deep as possible. And you could do it within 10, 15 minutes. I mean, another story, I was at a party with a chick. She was a friend of my ex-girlfriend's. And so she knew me and she's like, oh, hey, you're Hector. I know your ex, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, da-da-da. I'm from where she's from. Oh, cool, da-da-da. And within 15 minutes, we were talking about, I guess, partying and stuff. She's like, yeah, I kind of like to go to, festivals. And I, sometimes I like to take Molly and da-da-da and have some fun. And, I just feel like you can kind of let go. And she was really getting into it. And then as she was talking, she stopped. And she was like, oh, my God, I can't believe I just told you that. And it was super sincere. It wasn't, some fake kind of connection thing. Like, she actually like looked like she had gotten caught. She's like, wait a second, why did I just tell you that? Right? She's like, I don't think I've ever admitted that to anyone outside of, I guess, those groups of people she does that with. And I was like, hey, no problem. Like, that's cool. I totally don't, or I had another girl at a club. I met her within like 8 minutes. I was propositioning her, and she was like, I think you're really cute, but I have a boyfriend, blah blah blah, and I don't normally do hookups either, anyways. And I was like, oh, have you never done a hookup? And she's like, well, there was one exception. I was at this party, and I was in my early 20s at the time, but there was a lot of cool older folks, and they made me feel very comfortable. And there was one guy there, and he was really hot and really mature, and that was the only time I've ever had a one night stand. And she said that, and she went, oh my God, I can't believe I just told you that. She's like, I've literally never told anyone. And again, she was very sincere, but I was just very good at making her feel comfortable and making her feel as if this was a safe place to talk. And I was just really direct and honest, because I like to get as deep and personal as possible. So I'm not afraid to ask those questions that you might think, oh, that's inappropriate. The only times I think something is inappropriate is when they're not ready. That's it. That's the only barrier of propriety in my mind. I don't think there's any limit of topics so long as someone's willing to talk about it, right? They're consenting to allow themselves to be that open and vulnerable. And I'm willing to take that risk of someone saying, oh, that's a bit too personal, because, okay, I just don't talk about it then. I just leave it alone and move on to something else, right? But you're too afraid of embarrassment, or you're afraid of conflict, okay? So you can talk about anything. You can talk about religion. You can talk about politics. You can talk about sex. You can talk about, your favorite video game. You can talk about Warhammer 40K. As long as you're paying attention to all these things that I've mentioned, go deeper. But then also talk about general things, because general things can be interesting. But the best things are when you talk about general things and you find something personal, try and hammer into it. Not too excitedly, right? Think of conversation as just increasing her comfort level. And you understand that by watching her fundamentals. And even if you're disagreeing with someone, you don't want them to feel judged. There is one slight exception where, especially with politics, I've done this a lot, where a girl has her political views and mine are the opposite. I tend to skew more conservative. And so, especially in recent years, girls can kind of be offended by that, right? And I will actually play into it, and I'll have fun disagreeing with them. But I don't look angry. In fact, when I disagree with them, I'm like, oh, you silly, whatever political view she has, or whatever politician, like, oh yeah, look at this Bernie bro, and she loves her, champagne socialism, and she'll be like, oh, how dare you, and I just kind of laugh at it, and I have fun with it. First of all, because her views are stupid, so I genuinely believe they're dumb and know they're dumb, right? But I have an air of brevity about it. It's like, it's not that big of a deal, right? I don't think you should even be allowed to vote, but you know what? If you're going to and it's going to be a fucking stupid thing, then okay, go ahead. I'm just going to laugh at you, right? But I'm actually supporting the correct side, So we'll get into the disagreements, and I'll have fun with it. But then when it comes to the actual, this policy or this person, I'll be like, okay, well, that's wrong. And then she'll say, oh, well, I believe this. And I'll go, okay, well, did you actually see the video where they clipped what he said? Is that what he actually said? Well, no. What? You didn't even watch it, right? Like, how the fuck can you even? And I'll put them into a corner and beat them in the argument. So I look intellectually superior and dominant, which is attractive. Anyone on YouTube would be like, oh my God, that's so misogynist, sexist. It doesn't matter, right? The proof is in the pussy. Women do like when you can beat them in an argument. As long as you're not fucking hostile about it. You can even be somewhat disrespectful, but as long as you're not hostile, unless she's rabidly a fanatic, right? And will lose her mind over like a disagreement of politics or some sort of, war or conflict. And she's very hard nosed about this side or that side. Okay. Then, you may want to stray from that topic, but you're going to know because you're going to see her face and her mannerisms. She's going to go, well, yeah, I can't, anyone who supports that side is just an absolute piece of shit. So you go, okay. Getting into argument here isn't worth it because first of all, she's smooth brained and isn't even going to she's just an NPC, right? So it's not even worth talking about it with her. So there's no chance of persuasion. The only time you want to talk about it is because it's fun and it can actually be used as a seduction tool. So you just move on. And if she kind of presses you on it, just be like, oh, don't lie, right? You should stay your side. Be like, oh, I don't necessarily agree, but I don't really want to talk about it. So you show discomfort with it and you say that's too personal, right? You control the conversation because you should be controlling the conversation. You should be talking about what you want to talk about. Always remember that even though we're seducing a girl and we're trying to, do what she wants, right? Because if you give a girl what she wants, she gives you what you want in return. But there is, of course, the play of she also has to seduce you. Okay, so if you're not talking about something you want to talk about, or if you see something is moving in a bad direction, cut it and move to a different topic. Okay, but don't be afraid of the personal. Don't be afraid of the political, the religious, the the spiritual, the very personal. Okay, and don't be afraid to disagree with girls because it will show that you have the balls to disagree with them. And if you win the argument, it makes you look dominant. And it's really in women, again, for the most part. If a woman beats you in an argument or you don't seem like you have strong opinions, they will lose respect for you. And I know this because I've tried to kind of evade things sometimes and tried not to be too contentious. And I saw visibly women's attraction was lost. And when I was willing to fight them on it, even really rabid, one was an activist feminist, right? And I was just like, bam, you're wrong, bam, you're wrong, bam, you're wrong. And we would sleep together and have threesomes together. I remember pounding her pussy into the fucking couch while there was a very specific flag behind me and that she would hate to see, right? Because it represents a political side that she doesn't like. And I even would joke to her as I was slamming my dick in her pussy. And I was like, yeah, you're getting fucked by, a guy who supports that guy. And it pissed her off, but she fucking liked it, right? So don't be afraid to talk about these things, okay? Let's see what else. Talked about fundamentals, politics, personal. Yeah. So, talk about anything, okay? As long as you have passion, you have fundamentals, and you're watching if you're having fun with it and if she's having fun with it. Other than that, talk about whatever the fuck you want to talk about, okay? At the end of the day, you're trying to create a bond, but you're also trying to create attraction. And if you have good fundamentals when you're talking, that creates the attraction. And then when you bond over having shared values, or at least even if you have different values, you can respect that she has that and you're not insulting or hostile, then she'll have attraction because, you have your own opinion and you're standing by it and you're not afraid to express it, but you also show basic human decency and respect, and she will be attracted to that, or she'll feel like there's a bond there, that even though that's when opposites attract. For the most part, similarity is a very strong attractor, but opposites attract when she respects your, not necessarily your position, but your firmness on the position, and then still sees you as a human, because people tend to dehumanize whatever opposite side of the aisle on the issue, and you don't let that happen when you create the bond through the rest of the conversation. But of course, when you see a disagreement, kind of either finish it up, wrap it up after you have some fun with it, and then cut it and move on to something else. And try to get as personal as possible, as quickly as possible. And that's how you actually sleep with the girl really, really quickly, because you create a bond that makes her feel as if she's known you for 10, 15 years. But really, she's only known you for 2 hours, but is willing to suck on your dick because she feels that connection. Connections are not bound by time. They are bound by the nature of bonding, right? And the nature of bonding is predicated on your skill of expression and your skill of staying away from things that break bonds and towards things that create bonds, which is pretty much either similarity or respect for the opposite position and feeling as if you don't disrespect her position either. Okay, cool. So that's what you talk about with girls on dates. No topic is forbidden. So yeah, cool. If you need to find girls to actually have dates with, right? That's one of the hardest parts. Some guys are really good once they get a girl, just have trouble actually getting girls in the first place. Other guys are the opposite. They're really good at getting girls, but then once it's time to actually sit down for a date, they really suck at that. If you're having trouble actually meeting girls, probably the most consistent way to do it, and the highest quality girls, and you're not bound by your online dating profile pics or, waiting for Friday and Saturday night or having a group of friends that have hot girls in them, is day game, right? Cold approach. It has it's like an infinite money glitch. You can just infinitely go out and talk to hot girls, but you have to know, what time you should go out, where you should go, how to actually start the conversation, all of that. It is a process, and it's something that I learned, and I can save you so much time learning how to do it. You can do it on your own. You can watch some YouTube videos, but I give you a very, very easy process in how to do it with my course, Meet Girls Everywhere, and I'll save you tons of time, and I'm the best at it, okay? And I have the best system for it. So it's very simple. Go in the description below. Go read more about it. There's a lot of descriptions on the website about it. It's not really worth me spending 10 minutes describing it too much. All the marketing is there, right? But get it and then practice it. And then you can actually get dates with really hot girls and as many as you're willing to go approach. Then once you're on the actual date, you can apply this advice and have a really nice time with her and create a bond, but also seduce her. And then, you two can do whatever it is that you want. One night stand, casual, or serious. But at the end of the day, you're still trying to get your dick in her pussy because you're a man and she's a woman. So yeah, Hector Castillo, girlschase.com. Hope you enjoyed the video. I shall see you soon.